The first time Mira walked into Henley's corner store, it was raining. Not the kind of rain that makes you run, the kind that lingers, the kind that soaks through your shoes and your plans. She was 19. Thin coat, thin wallet, eyes tired from late night studying, and a heart heavier than her backpack. The store wasn't much. The flickering neon sign outside had lost its why. The door creaked when it opened, and the place always smelled like dust, cinnamon gum, and old receipts. Behind the counter sat Mr. Henley, graying beard, wrinkled flannel. He barely looked up. She walked to the back where the discounted items were, picked out a small bread roll, 75 cents, and a banana, 50 cents. Her coins clinked onto the counter. 100. She was short again. She looked up, ready to put the banana back, but Mr. Henley didn't say a word. He just slid the food toward her and muttered, "Just take it. Come back when you can." She blinked, mumbled a thank you, then left, feeling a little more human than before. That became a pattern. Every week she came back, sometimes for a piece of fruit, sometimes just a moment of stillness in her noisy life. She never had enough. He never asked why, and every time, he'd reach under the register, pull out a crumpled bill and say, "Don't make a habit of it, but eat." She'd smile, not because it was funny, but because it was kindness, wrapped in grumpiness, and it made her feel seen, not pitied, not helped, seen. Years later, when people asked her how she made it through college, she never talked about scholarships or side gigs. She talked about the man who gave her $5, without ever making her feel she owed him anything. And even though he never said it, it felt like he was telling her, "I know you'll make it. I'm just giving you time." 10 years later, Mira stood at the edge of that same sidewalk. The sign above the store had finally lost all its letters. Henley's corner store was now just a faint outline of what it used to be. The paint had peeled, the awning sagged like tired shoulders, and the little bell above the door, the one that used to ring every time she walked in, was gone. She pushed the door open anyway. It creaked loudly, but there was no welcome, no muttered grumble, just silence, and the faint smell of dust still clinging to the shelves. The inside hadn't changed much. Same shelves, same old cash register. But the lights flickered more than she remembered, and some sections were completely empty. She took slow steps past the candy aisle, the spot where bananas used to be, and the corner where she once cried quietly after failing her final exam. Every memory here was quiet, but it was hers. Behind the counter, where Mr. Henley used to sit tall and distant, was now an old man, smaller somehow. He sat hunched, wrapped in 2 layers of flannel, staring blankly out the window. Mira didn't say anything at first. She didn't expect him to recognize her. After all, 10 years had passed. She had grown into a sharp suit, sleek hair, and confidence stitched from survival. But when he turned and looked at her, really looked, his eyes didn't light up. Instead, he frowned slightly and asked, "Did you want something?" She smiled gently. Same voice, same gruff tone. But there was something missing now, something quiet behind his eyes. "No," she said. "I just used to come here, a long time ago." He squinted. "Lots of kids did." She nodded, then paused. "You once gave a girl $5 every week, so she could eat." He stared at her for a long time, then said, "That doesn't narrow it down." And for some reason, Mira laughed, because he hadn't changed. Not really. Still gruff, still pretending not to care. But the way he tilted his head slightly, the way his eyes lingered on her face just a second longer, she knew he remembered, even if he wasn't going to say it. She placed a paper bag on the counter. "Something for you," she said. He looked at it suspiciously. "What is it?" She smiled. "Not enough, but more than 5 up." He didn't open it, not right away, and that was okay, because Mira wasn't there for gratitude. She was there because a girl once walked into a store soaking wet and walked out with more than breakfast. She walked out with hope. Mr. Henley waited until she left. Old habits, maybe, or just pride wrapped in flannel and folded like an old receipt. But curiosity always wins. He sat down slowly, pulled the paper bag closer, and opened it. with the same care he used to open shipment boxes 20 years ago. Inside, he found an envelope, not thick with money, not flashy, just plain white, with his name written in handwriting he almost remembered. He opened it and pulled out a check. His hands froze, then trembled. He had to blink twice to be sure he was seeing it right. It wasn't $5 or 50, it was 50,000, made out in his name, signed by Mira. No fancy logo, no long letter, just one small note, folded in half. You once said, "Come back when you can." I finally can. He stared at the check for a long time, not because he didn't believe it, but because something heavier than shock was sitting on his chest. Something he couldn't name. He didn't cry. Mr. Henley didn't cry, but he did sit still for a long time, listening to the hum of the broken refrigerator, watching the shadows on the linoleum floor. And then, slowly, he looked up at the old photo pinned behind the counter. A younger version of himself, arms crossed, pretending to be annoyed by a skinny girl with bright eyes and a banana in her hand. He had kept the photo all these years, forgotten it was even there. Later that evening, he walked out the front door of the store and sat on the wooden bench Mira used to wait on. The check was still in his pocket, but what echoed louder in his chest wasn't the number written in ink. It was a sentence, her sentence. I finally can. And somehow, that meant more than money ever could. Mira came back 2 days later. This time, she didn't wear her heels. She wore sneakers, old ones with worn-out soles, because she wasn't here to impress anyone. She was here for something real. Mr. Henley was behind the counter again, same spot, same posture. But his eyes lifted a little faster this time when he saw her. No words, just a slight nod. And for him, that meant welcome back. She placed her hands gently on the counter. "I want to ask you something," she said. He leaned back in his chair. "Depends what it is." "I want to buy the store," she said softly. "Not to tear it down, not to build over it. I want to fix it. Keep the name, keep the soul. Just give it life again." Mr. Henley didn't reply right away. His hand moved to the edge of the counter, tapping slowly. You could almost hear the years passing in that silence. "This place isn't worth much," he muttered. Mira smiled. "To me, it's worth everything." He looked at her, really looked. It wasn't just business. It wasn't pity. It was the kind of look a father gives his child when he realizes they've grown up quietly, right in front of him. "This place has bad pipes," he said. "I'll fix them. The freezer's broken. I'll replace it. You'll lose money. I've lost worse." He exhaled slowly. "You're serious." "I always was," she whispered. Outside, the rain had started again, just like the first day she walked into this place. And this time, she wasn't leaving empty-handed. She was taking something with her. Not a muffin, not a banana, but the keys. Keys to a store. Keys to a chapter. Keys to a memory she didn't want the world to forget. And Mr. Henley, for the first time in years, reached under the register, not to pull out $5, but a small tin box filled with old receipts, rubber bands, and one set of rusty keys. He handed them to her without a word, and Mira held them like something sacred, because to her they were. The next morning, Mira stood in front of the store, holding a cup of black coffee and a folded blueprint. She didn't hire a big construction crew, no flashing vests, no noise, just her. And a few kind hands she trusted from her past. A carpenter who used to be her college roommate's dad. A retired electrician who once fixed her dorm's heater for free. They showed up, not because she paid well, though she did, but because they saw something in her eyes. She wasn't just rebuilding a store. She was restoring a piece of who she used to be. Each shelf told a story. This one was where she once knocked over a jar of honey and cried quietly while wiping it up. That corner? She had once hidden there, hoping to avoid a landlord who wanted rent she didn't have. They repainted the walls, pale cream. They scrubbed the floor until the years faded. She brought in second-hand tables, fresh fruit crates, and a new bell for the door. This time, it rang beautifully. Mr. Henley didn't help much. His knees weren't what they used to be. But every afternoon, he sat on that same wooden bench outside, sipping weak tea and pretending he wasn't watching. Except he was. Sometimes he'd grunt, Should have left the wall green. Or, that shelf's too high, kids won't reach. Mira would smile, say nothing, but keep painting, because truthfully she was building it for him, even if he didn't ask for it. One evening, after the lights had been fully rewired and the new register installed, she unlocked the front door and invited him in. He stepped over the threshold slowly, paused. The place still smelled like dust and cinnamon gum, but now it also smelled like fresh bread and hope. He looked around, eyes moving across the shelves. "You made it nice," he muttered. She nodded. "You made it safe," she said back. Behind the counter, where he once handed out kindness disguised as grumpiness, she had framed something. It wasn't a diploma or a certificate. It was the photo of that 19-year-old girl holding a banana, smiling at the man who didn't know he was saving her. And beneath it, in tiny gold lettering, "For the man who gave me $5 and never asked for change." Mr. Henley didn't say anything, but his eyes lingered. Long enough to know he had left something behind. Something that didn't spoil, fade, or expire. Something permanent. The day the store reopened, there were no banners, no big signs, no grand speeches. Just a chalkboard on the sidewalk that read, "We're here again, and we remember you." It was enough. By noon, a steady stream of people trickled in. A mother with her toddler, who pointed to the candy aisle with wide eyes. A teenager who once got caught shoplifting gum and now worked at a bank. A delivery man who used to stop by for coffee when no one else was awake yet. And then there were the quiet ones, the ones who didn't speak much, who walked in, paused and stared, as if they'd found a version of themselves still living here. Mira stood behind the counter, not as an owner, not as a boss, just as someone keeping the lights on. She didn't push sales. She didn't ask questions. She just nodded, smiled. Let people take their time. Every now and then, someone would ask, "Wait, wasn't this place run by that old man with the beard?" Mira would point to the photo behind her, and they'd nod slowly. "Yeah," they'd say. "He used to give me Tic Tacs when I came in crying." Or, "He once fixed my bike chain, wouldn't take a dime." It was like the store had memory, like the shelves remembered who had leaned on them, like the floor knew every tired footstep by name. And Mr. Henley? He sat near the door most days, quietly sipping tea. People recognized him. Some waved. Some stopped to say thank you for something they barely remembered. But that had stayed with them all this time. He pretended to grumble, but his hands stopped shaking. Later that evening, when the last customer had left, Mira switched off the main lights, leaving only the warm ones near the register. She walked over to Mr. Henley, who was still seated, gazing at the soft glow. "You never ran a store," he said, without looking at her. She raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" "You ran a place where people remembered who they were," he continued. "That's different." She didn't reply right away, but in her chest something settled. Like maybe, after all these years, she hadn't just come back to repay a debt. She'd come back to finish a story. The first rainy morning since the reopening brought with it a quiet drizzle and an unexpected visitor. He was tall, maybe in his 60s, with a gray cap and tired eyes that looked like they'd seen too many winters. He walked into the store slowly, as if he wasn't sure if it was real or just a memory dressed in fresh paint. Mira greeted him with her usual warmth. "Looking for something in particular?" The man smiled faintly. "Not really, just following a promise I made." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small envelope, yellowed with age, edges soft like old fabric, and on the front, in faded ink, it read, "Henley's Corner Store, Atney Harold Henley. To be delivered if she ever comes back." Mira's breath caught. She looked at the man. He nodded slowly. "He gave it to me years ago. Said if a girl named Mira ever came back, I'd know. Told me not to open it, just to wait." Her hands trembled slightly as she took the envelope. It was sealed tight. The kind of seal someone uses when they know the words matter. Mr. Henley was out back, tending to the garden Mira had planted behind the store. So she waited until evening, when the store was closed, when the lights were low, when silence returned. Like an old friend, She handed him the envelope without a word. He stared at it, didn't touch it, just said, "You found it." She nodded. "I didn't think you'd remember," he whispered. "I never forgot," she replied. He opened it slowly. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded once. His handwriting, bold, crooked, firm. He didn't read it aloud, but when he finished, he folded it again, slid it back into the envelope, and looked at her with something she hadn't seen before. Pride. The quiet kind. The kind that doesn't need to speak. He handed her the envelope. "You should keep it," he said. "It's yours now. It always was." She didn't open it again. She didn't need to. Because sometimes you don't need to read the words to understand the message. Sometimes just being remembered is enough. The days began to blend together, softly, like watercolor bleeding at the edges. Each morning, Mira unlocked the door, straightened the chalkboard, lit the tiny hanging lights that gave the shelves a golden glow. And each evening she sat with Mr. Henley as the city dimmed, talking about the past, the weather, or sometimes nothing at all. But one Tuesday afternoon, something unexpected happened. A girl, maybe 16, stepped into the store. She wore a hoodie too big for her, and her eyes darted around like she didn't belong. Mira recognized the look, not from books or movies, but from mirrors. Mirrors from 10 years ago. The girls picked up a small sandwich and a bottle of water, stared at the price, froze. Then slowly, silently, put them back. Mira didn't say anything. She just walked over, gently tapped the girl's shoulder, and handed her the sandwich. "It's okay," she said. "You can come back when you can." The girl blinked, the same way Mira once did, then took the food, and something else intangible, something called dignity. That night, Mira sat out on the floor of the stockroom, back resting against dusty boxes, and thought long and hard. What if this place wasn't just meant to be rebuilt, but reimagined? What if it became a space where young people could come after school, where old customers could get a free coffee and a memory, where people in between, jobs, homes, hope, could feel human again? What if Henley's Corner wasn't just a store anymore, but a second chance? She brought it up with Mr. Henley the next morning. He listened, arms crossed, eyes skeptical as always. "You'll lose money," he grumbled. "I'll gain meaning," she replied. He grunted, then after a long pause said, "If you're going to turn this place into something soft and noble, just make sure the coffee doesn't go weak." Mira laughed. "Deal." That week she put up a new sign near the counter. "Free sandwich or drink, no questions asked. Come back when you can. Myra and Mir Henley." And just like that, Henley's Corner became more than a store. It became a place where kindness wasn't charity. It was just what people did for each other. Quiet, simple. Like handing someone a crumpled $5 bill and trusting they'll be okay someday. Mr. Henley had always been a man of few words. He didn't like ceremony. He hated paperwork, and he loathed the idea of being fussed over. But he knew time was catching up with him. The long walks to the bench felt longer. His hands, once steady with receipts and register drawers, now trembled just enough to notice. One evening, when the sun dipped behind the buildings and cast golden shadows across the front windows, he handed Mira a small envelope. No wax seal, no drama, just her name, handwritten in his crooked familiar script. She looked at him. He just said, "Not for now, just when it's time." She nodded, didn't push, didn't ask. Because with Mr. Henley, silence was a kind of love. Weeks passed. The store buzzed gently with new life. A local teacher began bringing his students by to read in the corner nook. A woman who'd once slept in her car now volunteered twice a week to sweep the floor. Henley's Corner was becoming less a shop and more a story being rewritten by everyone who stepped inside. Then, one morning, Mira unlocked the door and noticed something. The bench outside was empty. The teacup, usually half full, resting on the armrest, was gone. And Mr. Henley didn't show up. Not that day, not the next. It was the third morning when the phone rang. The kind of call that doesn't need many words. He had passed quietly in his sleep. No hospital, no machines, just the hum of a radio beside his bed. and a flannel shirt folded neatly at the foot. Mira didn't cry right away. Instead, she walked to the back room, sat on the floor, opened the envelope. Inside, folded once with care, was a legal document and one handwritten line at the bottom. If this store ever meant something to her, then let it be hers completely. Signed, Harold Henley, witnessed, stamped, official. But what mattered wasn't the ink, it was the trust, the quiet passing of a torch, not with applause, but with a whisper. It's yours now. That night, Mira left the lights on a little longer. The shelves stood still. The photo behind the register remained, and Henley's corner didn't feel emptier. It felt full of everything he'd quietly left behind. A week after Mr. Henley's passing, Mira returned to the store just as the morning light filtered through the dusty windows. No customers, no deliveries, no music humming from the radio. Just silence and her. She walked to the back of the store, carrying a small envelope. Not old, not faded, fresh, white, her name on the front. But this time, she was the one who had written it. She sat down at the little table behind the counter, unfolded a piece of lined paper, and began to write. Dear Mr. Henley, you always hated attention, so I won't make this long, but I needed to say thank you. Not just for the muffins, or the bananas, or the $5 that always seemed to find me when I had nothing left. Thank you for seeing me, even when I didn't want to be seen. For letting me pay in silence. For letting me exist without judgment. This place, it saved me, not just with food or shelter, but with something I didn't know I needed. Steadiness. When the world outside felt too fast, too sharp, you gave me quiet. And now, I promise, I'll give that quiet to others. I'll run this store the way you did. No loud signs, no expectations. Just an open door, and maybe a muffin. Still warm, just like back then. Yours, Mira. She folded the letter, placed it in a small wooden frame, and slid it gently onto the shelf beside the register, right under the photo of Mr. Henley. No plaque, no flowers, just a note, waiting, watching, welcoming. That day, the store opened again, and people came, not to shop, but to feel something they couldn't name. A sense of return, of being remembered, of kindness, passed down like an heirloom. And if you ever walk past that old corner store someday, you might see a girl behind the counter, now a woman, offering a muffin, a cup of tea, and a smile that says, come back when you can, because someone once did the same for her, and she never forgot. Thank you for listening to this story. I truly hope it left you with a sense of peace, a little more kindness, and maybe even a quiet kind of happiness. If it touched you in any way, please consider subscribing, leaving a comment, or simply liking this video. It means more than you know. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, and I'll see you in the next story. Take care.